I am Mary Grace.
I'm Leslie.
I am Hannah.
I am Sweetie.
We are the reporters from Germany chat here. Alright.
Guten Tag. That's good day in German. Yes, today we will be talking about Germany, or also known as Dutchland. Its English word Germany is derived from the Latin word Germania, and Dutchland is originally called Juttersland before. It means the land of popular people. The capital city of Germany is Berlin, and its official language is German. Let's talk more about it. The world's famous musicians, Ludwig Beethoven and Richard Wagner, are Germans. The world's famous philosophers, Karl Marx and Albert Einstein, are Germans too. And talking about genius, aspirin, book printing, helicopter, and nuclear fission are great inventions of German people. Also, the German people contributed a lot for European literature and European history. Their pieces are founded in politics and history, especially about fragmentation and discontinuity. The German literature experienced three periods of established greatness. First, the High Middle Ages. Second, the turn of 18th to the 19th century. And third, the turn of the 19th to the 20th century.
Let's have a warm-up activity. This is an individual activity, and you are tasked to analyze the pictures given by each item. Each item, there are 4 choices to guess the right answer. You will be given only 10 seconds to answer. Good luck!
Hermann Hesse was born in 1877 in the town of Kalk, on the edge of Germany's Black Forest. He grew up in a missionary family whose religious beliefs deeply influenced him. At the age of 14, he entered Marlborough Seminary but was soon expelled. Hesse experienced problems with severe depression and anger. He transferred schools several times before finally graduating and returning to home. He took jobs in bookstore, where he read many of his grandfather's books on Eastern religion and philosophy. In 1904, at the age of 37, Hesse published his first novel, Peter Kamensin, a tale of an idealistic and driven youth who leaves his home in a Swiss mountain village to become a poet. In 1906, Hesse published his second novel, On Term Rad. In 1919, Hesse moved to Switzerland and published The Man. Throughout this time, Hesse remained interested in Eastern religions. He traveled several times to Asia and the Middle East. His studies eventually led to the publication of Siddhartha in 1922, Hesse's most famous book. In 1927, Hesse wrote Stephen Wolf. It is about Hesse's own spiritual journey, modern political and social life in Germany. Hesse's last major work was published in 1943, The Glass Bead Game. In 1946, Hesse was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. He died in 1962 at the age of 85.
Good morning, class! Today on Show and Tell, we will share with you all the places we visited during our summer vacation trip.
Siddhartha is the protagonist of the story. He sets out on the quest for enlightenment and tests the religious philosophies he discovers. He devotes himself wholeheartedly to the pursuit of this understanding even when the path is difficult. Vasudeva, the enlightened ferryman who guides Siddhartha to a transcendent understanding of himself and the universe. He is closely linked to the river, and Siddhartha achieves enlightenment only because of his association with Vasudeva. Govinda is Siddhartha's best friend and sometimes his follower, and also devotes his life to the quest for understanding and enlightenment. He searches for enlightenment independently of Siddhartha, but in the end, he is able to achieve enlightenment only because of Siddhartha's love for him. Kamala is a courtesan who instructs Siddhartha in the art of physical love. She helps him learn the ways of the city and leave his ascetic life as a samana behind. Just before she dies from a snake bite, she reveals that Siddhartha is the father of her son. Gautama is an enlightened religious leader with many followers. Gautama is said to have attained nirvana. He teaches the Eightfold Path to his many followers as the way to achieve true enlightenment. Kawaswami, an older businessman who teaches Siddhartha the art of business. Kamala refers Siddhartha to Kamaswami, and with Kamaswami's guidance, Siddhartha successfully insinuates himself into the society of city dwellers. Young Siddhartha is Siddhartha's son with Kamala. Young Siddhartha possesses a final task. Siddhartha must pause before enlightenment. When Kamala dies, young Siddhartha resists, starting a new life with Siddhartha. Siddhartha's father is a respected Brahmin in Siddhartha's boyhood community. Siddhartha's father familiarizes Siddhartha with many basic religious teachings, but he is unable to provide Siddhartha with the answers he needs, which leads to Siddhartha's quest for enlightenment through other religious traditions. The Samanas, a group of traveling ascetics who believe that a life of deprivation and wandering is the path to self-actualization. The Samanas initially captivate Siddhartha and Govinda, but the two eventually forsake them to follow the teachings of Gautama.
Analysis of the Brahmin's son. Hermann Hesse resembles Buddha in the character of Siddhartha. He leaves his father, explores several kinds of spiritual teachings, and finally achieves enlightenment, just like what happened in Buddha's three seminal events: the departure from his father's house, the wasted and frustrating years torn between the pursuit of worldly desires and a life of great asceticism, and finally the determination of the middle path as the only road to enlightenment. Analysis with the Samanas. The Samanas believe that enlightenment can be found only through the rejection of flesh and worldly desires. The Samanas' teachings aim to enable the seeker of knowledge to escape the physical world. But Siddhartha realizes that true enlightenment cannot come from ignoring the world around him. Thus, he left the teachings of the Samanas because they do not lead him to enlightenment. Samanas may not be able to give Siddhartha enlightenment, but they do, in their own ways, set him on a path that will help him find enlightenment for himself. Analysis of Gautama. Siddhartha has been looking for someone to show him the path to enlightenment. So he met Gautama. However, Siddhartha realizes that Gautama's rules are like those of the Hindus and Samanas, speak of renunciation as a means of escaping suffering. He decided to leave Gautama and thought that neither Gautama nor any other guide can teach enlightenment because wisdom must be learned through experience. This time, he dealt himself in the material world where he learned such experiences of gambling, drinking, and sex. Later on, he realized that the material world is slowly killing him without providing him with the enlightenment for which he has been searching.
The analysis of the awakening. In awakening, Siddhartha fully understands that discovery and enlightenment must come through the world of the here and now. Siddhartha suddenly sees the world's beauty and realizes that meaning is everywhere. Siddhartha must discover who and what he is, and he calls this discovery a rebirth, one of several rebirths he will undergo during his quest. This rebirth signifies the death of what he was and his ignorance of what he will become. It concludes that awakening suggests that Siddhartha's upcoming investigation into the material world is a continuation of a correct path toward enlightenment. The lessons he has learned are clear in his mind. He sees the world in its beauty and he is energized to move forward. Although he does not have a clear sense of how he will achieve his enlightenment, he is confident that he will find his way through his own direction. Analysis of Kamala. The root word of Kamala is Kama, which signifies the Hindu god of love and desire. Siddhartha's transformation begins even before he meets Kamala or Kamaswami. His awareness increase of the sensory world demonstrates that he is allowing the world to influence him. This idea of the world as illusion is common to Hindu and Buddhist philosophy and suggests that the material world is a distraction from the divine, which is essential truth. Analysis of amongst the people. Siddhartha's decision to exploit the senses instead of denying them draws him into the world of time and normal people. This world is linked to the Hindu god Kama, the god of desires, who is represented in the names of those closest to him during this period, Kamala and Kamaswami. From these worldly people, Siddhartha learns much that is useful in the world of time, including how to live happily in the moment, as well as how to use the present to produce a desired consequence in the future. From Kamala, he learns part of the Eightfold Path, considered right attitude, which indicates that the correct way to approach an experience is to completely surrender the self while keeping the purpose steadily in mind. In addition, from Kamaswami, he learns the concept of right aspiration, which indicates that working for an immediate gain yields no real profit. Kamala is a master instructor of the truths of the material world, just as Gautama was a master instructor of the truths of the spiritual world.
By the river. When Siddhartha encounters the river, he realizes that the past is essential to life, but does not determine the future. At the river, Siddhartha falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he knows he is a new man. He has been reborn. The river grants him self-knowledge and sets him on a new course. Siddhartha has learned the Buddha's lesson of right conduct. He must take the way that comes naturally. The ferryman. Siddhartha finds the ideal teacher,
Vasudeva. But Vasudeva admits he is not a teacher. Perhaps he is only a ferryman. Vasudeva is a guide both literally and figuratively. While he guides Siddhartha back and forth across the river, he also affirms Siddhartha's spiritual progress and encourages him to continue searching. The son. Through his interaction with his son, Siddhartha learns the Buddhist lesson of right and reform, and that it is not possible to impose one's knowledge of the timeless upon who is still subject to the limits of time. Siddhartha does not realize he is trying to make his son in his own image, but his son realizes it and resents Siddhartha for doing so. Everyone must follow his own voice to enlightenment. Siddhartha learned for himself that no one can teach enlightenment and that enlightenment must be found within.
Siddhartha, analysis, samsara.
Symbols. Objects, characters, figures, or colors are the symbols in the story which are used to represent abstracts, ideas, or concepts. The ferryman. The ferryman guides anyone in going to the river and the path to enlightenment. The ferryman has been placed between ordinary world and enlightenment, and those who will look for enlightenment will be guided by the ferryman in searching what they need. In addition, only the ferrymen are able to help others find enlightenment. The smile. The characters in Siddhartha who only smile are those who successfully achieve enlightenment, and the smile represents the spiritual perfection and harmony. Smiles are unusual among the Hindus and Samanas and also in the material world, since enlightenment cannot be faked or forced. However, only after going through the basic stages which led to enlightenment can express one beatific smile.
Good morning, class! Today on Show and Tell, we will share with you all the places we visited during our summer vacation trip.
Enough! I can't put up with you anymore.
Themes in the novel Siddhartha. First, the search for spiritual enlightenment. Siddhartha is in search for truth, understanding of life, or nirvana. Siddhartha and Govinda believes the conviction that finding nirvana is possible and that they are willing to do in search for this truth. But Siddhartha continues to follow whatever path becomes available. While Govinda is much less flexible in his quest for spiritual enlightenment, he is unable to see the truth around him, since he is limited by his belief that truth will appear in the way he has been taught by his teachers. And in Siddhartha's part, he is able to find truth through his own powers. Second, inner versus exterior guidance. Siddhartha learns that enlightenment cannot be reached through teachers because it cannot be taught. He believes that enlightenment comes from within. He first believed in organized religion, but this failed to teach him wisdom. Vasudeva, a teacher of Siddhartha, never attempts to tell Siddhartha what the meaning of life is. Instead, he lets Siddhartha meditate in rivers. Nirvana, in reality, comes from within. Third, the wisdom of indirection. Throughout the novel, Siddhartha pursues nirvana differently. He eventually finds that a more indirect approach yields greater rewards. Both Siddhartha and Govinda initially seek nirvana aggressively and directly, but they rely on intuition for guidance. This is more likely to take into account all elements of the world, and in this tends to see the unity of the world.
Love. The role of love in Siddhartha's life changes throughout his search for enlightenment. Siddhartha sees love in action, primarily in the form of compassion. Through Kamala and his son, he has learned to love the world and accept it.
It signifies the oneness and unity of all things. It involves not only the physical and spiritual world, but also the time. Polarities. In Siddhartha finds that enlightenment does not come from mastering either material or spiritual world, but finding the common ground between these polarities of existence. He achieves transcendence, where he can accept that all is false and true at the same time, that all is living and dead at the same moment, and that all possibilities are united in the spirit of the universe.
For language exercises, the class will be divided into 5 groups. The group must make at least 2 new words from each given word. New words must transcribe into IPA form, and also, the group must give connotative meanings in each new word. The first 3 groups who will finish the activity will win and receive additional 4 points.
We are now going to end our presentation with the evaluation. In one whole sheet of paper, make a reflective essay on how will you perceive worldly desires and enlightenment in your life.